Hello everyone, and welcome to the third project of the Beyond the Box Custom Toy Show. I am your host and artist intern Rick, and today we've got a really cool project in store for you. I don't know about any of you Masters of the Universe collectors out there, but me specifically, my vintage Panthor is looking a little on the rough side. So today we are actually going to do a little restoration project. We're going to strip all of the original flocking off of Panthor, and we're going to completely re-hand flock him. So sit back and enjoy. Hopefully you'll learn something. All right. All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. As stated in the intro, we're going to be doing a cool little restoration project on the vintage Masters of the Universe Panthor figure. We're going to go ahead and strip all of the original flocking off of my dingy old beat-up Panthor, and we're going to do a custom hand flocking on him. So the first thing that we'll need to do is get all of our accessories and everything ready to go, and some of the things that we'll need for this project will be some kind of a good, strong, heavy, like a glue remover or paint remover, anything, you know, any kind of a solvent or whatever that will work good on removing glue. Something that will be able to soak through this flocking and get the glue that's holding it down on the figure to come up. I've tested out a couple different things, and for this project I have found that with what I've had accessible to me, the Goo Gone is probably what works best. So, with that in mind, you will also want a plastic bucket of some form that you can get your figure to completely fit into, because you are going to want to submerge a good portion of this figure. So, part of what delayed this project actually was trying to find the perfect purple flocking to use for the hand flock. So I actually ended up finding online some canisters of purple flocking powder that was fairly cheap and actually is the perfect shade for Panthor. So I'm really excited to actually get this going so we can see what this is going to look like. And then for the application of the flocking powder, you will want some kind of spray adhesive so we can actually spray this down on a palette and use a brush to brush it on. And then we will also go ahead and touch up any paint work that this figure has on it that is not covered up by the flocking to make this figure look minty fresh. Alright, so with that in mind, we'll go ahead and we will jump right in, and like I said, the first thing that we're going to want to do is strip all that old flocking off of this figure. And to do so, you will want to get your plastic bucket, and you will want to obviously remove your Panthor saddle. And what I think would probably work best, this is an old cat litter bucket, you know, basically just anything that you can completely fit your figure down in. And I'm going to try to get this figure to lay on its back or on its side in this bucket, and then I'm going to actually just pour the Goo Gone over this figure. And it's going to have to sit on there for a little while, but your figure will be safe. But I will tell you that you will want to make sure that you lay newspapers down. You're not wearing any clothing that you're worried about being ruined, and you'll want to try to be careful with how you're handling this Goo Gone if you're not working in a clean, contained environment, because it is very, very corrosive. If you get it on the glue and rubber of your shoes, it will eat through that. It will eat through very many things, so you want to be very careful with using this Goo Gone. As you can see in my toy studio, my toy collection hangs up on the wall, so I have to be very, very careful with using different chemicals and paints and stuff like that to make sure I don't get anything on my collection. So with that in mind, I have got the Panthor figure completely submerged here in this bucket. Now, I don't think that it's really going to be necessary to film the actual removal of the flocking. I'm just going to tell you how I'm going to do it, and then we'll take a break, and we'll come back and we'll have a completely cleaned off Black Panthor, and we'll go from there. So, like I said, you're going to want this Panthor figure to sit in this bucket. I have placed probably, I mean, you can probably see here, there's a good amount of Goo Gone in here. And I'm just kind of swishing it around. I got the Panthor figure down in there laying on its side. And, you know, it's going to definitely have to sit in there for a little while to make sure that the Goo Gone completely saturates the old flocking and can penetrate it down to the plastic to remove any of that glue that's holding it on there. And then you're going to want to use like a paintbrush, or excuse me, a toothbrush, or you know, some kind of a brush that you can just get down in there and scrub and scrub and scrub to get all of that old flocking and all that old glue and stuff off. Now, you will probably want to try to make sure that you get as much of this flocking and everything off as you possibly can, because whenever you go to reapply the new flocking, anything that is left on the underside, you'll be able to tell whenever you flock over it, because there will be, you know, elevation differences between the levels. So I think we'll go ahead and we'll take a break, and whenever I come back, we'll have a completely cleared off Panthor, and we'll actually zoom in and we'll start the customizing process. All right, we'll be right back. All right, everybody, welcome back. As you can see by the lighting, I'm sure some time has gone by. This was not an easy task, but we have basically a completely black bare plastic Panthor figure here. Now I will tell you, that was not an easy task at all. It was a lot more difficult than I thought it was going to be. I actually ended up having to pour the entire bottle of Goo Gone into the bucket in order to get the figure saturated enough to get that glue to start coming up off the figure. And then, as it turns out, a toothbrush was not at all strong enough in order to get it scrubbed off. So I actually ended up using a Brillo pad, believe it or not, and it worked famously. I don't see any damage or anything to the plastic whatsoever. I mean, it's a little dingy, but we're going to be flocking over that anyway. So, but yeah, I mean, even as the figure's drying, whatever little bits of flocking and stuff were left on there is just kind of flaking off. So I'm just trying to make sure that it's good and dry now, and that we're not going to have any big old globs of old flocking left in any place whatsoever. But for the most part, this figure is completely black. So I think what we'll probably do is, you know, something that actually I want to show and point out here, the durability of Mattel's paints. This figure was soaked in Goo Gone for probably 20-30 minutes and was scrubbed with a Brillo pad, and you'll notice that the paint in the mouth and on the teeth is still very much intact. I don't think it really looks any different than what it looked like beforehand. So just to show the durability and longevity of the paints that were used on these vintage toys, there you go. So with that said, I think what we'll probably do first is go ahead and get the paint in that mouth touched up, get the teeth touched up, see how we get that paint the way that we want it, and then we'll go ahead and we'll jump in and we'll get the reflocking process started. So with that in mind, we'll switch views, get in there close, and see how this is going to be done. All right? Alright, so here we are. Like I said, we'll go ahead and we'll start with the paint. Get this paint all touched up and get it the way that we'd like it to look. I laid out some newspaper here for a working area. So instead of pulling out a palette, I'm just going to go ahead and use this newspaper to throw my paint down on. And we got the red for the inside of the mouth. Now I'm using a little bit of a brighter shade than what the paint looks to be on the inside of the mouth now. Mostly because I kind of want it to be a little bit brighter, but also because I have a good feeling that the paint that is existing there has gotten dingy with age. So I did not shake this white up enough. dingy with age, so I want to kind of brighten it up a little bit to give it that new, fresh out of the package look. So get some white thrown down for the teeth, and get a brush. Okay. Now for this, I'm probably going to mostly use this little tip brush here, just so I can be super careful about where I'm painting at and not being too sloppy. I'll rinse my brush out a little bit and spin down some paint. So again, you know, just trying to be extremely careful, only brushing paint where Mattel has brushed paint. The idea is to try and get this to look as close, you know, to case fresh as possible. And if you get a little bit out of the lines on the mouth and stuff, it's not going to be that big of a deal because you can just brush adhesive for the flocking over there and, you know, just flock over it. If I have any instances like that, I'll be sure to show you. So, let's see here. I don't think it'll really take a whole lot of paint to get this taken care of. And I'm also going to be a lot cleaner with my paint application than those at Mattel were. I'm going to try and pack the red into this crevice that separates the two pieces of the plastic so it doesn't look so obvious. I had actually thought about filling it in at one point, but I think it's probably going to work best just to take the cheater's way out and fill it in with some paint. So let's make sure we get in there really well. And I apologize for the angles. I'm trying this new setup out for this project, try and get in there and let you guys actually see up close and personal what the painting process looks like, or what the, you know, restoration process, whatever, you know, whatever the project happens to be for that particular time. So if at any point I fall out of frame or anything like that, just know that I'm working on it, and eventually I'll get the bugs worked out. But I think this will be a lot better in the long run for all those that watch, so you can actually see what's going on. So remember, from any of the projects in the past, you're going to want to make sure that you thin your paint down so you don't have weird brush strokes and stuff like that pop up in your paint job, because you don't want it to be super obvious that this has been restored. Of course, you know, you want it to look you don't want it to look, you know, fake or anything like that. So getting in there between the teeth to get the back of the mouth and the roof of the mouth is not an easy task, but that's not really a big deal because we're doing the white of the teeth last, so any red that we actually get on the teeth we can just cover up whenever we do the white of the teeth. And you'll see here that gap is actually filling in pretty nicely. So there's the first coat of the red on the mouth. We're going to take a quick break. I'm going to adjust the lighting here a little bit. So, alright everybody, we're back. Took a couple minutes and got the lighting situation taken care of, and actually had to switch out batteries. So, sorry, needed something to drink. Okay. So while we were gone, this red that we just got done painting has actually had enough time to dry here. So I'm going to throw another quick coat. Just throw another quick coat down on in there just to make sure that it's good and applied. This red on the inside of the mouth, it really wasn't in that bad a shape. So like I said before, it's not really going to require a whole lot to get it to where I want it to be before we start the flocking. Over. Make sure you get the inside of the roof of the mouth up here real good. You know, that's something that's really important, to make sure you look at your paint job from all different angles. Just because it looks right one way doesn't necessarily mean it's going to look right always. And that's usually a good tip. Usually a good tip off or a good indicator that something is not right is if you flip it over and it doesn't look right upside down. Like I said before, I'm not being too careful with the red paint around those teeth, because after it dries, I'll just touch it up with some white. I'm actually going to get a good glob on my brush here and go along the inside of this seam to try and fill it in. But at the same time, you're going to want to make sure you smooth out any of that paint around the inside so you don't end up with any runs or major brush strokes. Okay, so that should about do it for that red paint. We'll give it a couple minutes to dry here, and then we'll mix up some white, and we'll paint those teeth too. Alright, so now we'll start getting the paint on the teeth here. Now keep in mind, anytime you paint with white paint, you're going to enter tricky territory. So we're going to mix this paint down with some water and get it thin, and you won't want to use too much of this paint at one time, because whenever it dries, white paint, especially this white acrylic paint, has a tendency to be very chalky and dry looking, and we don't want that. We want it to look as thin and as close to the original paint as possible. So just get in there and throw it on. It should go on pretty easy, especially if you use your paintbrush, lay it down across the teeth, and just kind of brush that white down. It'll lay itself down pretty well. I'm trying to be careful here because I know my red is probably still pretty wet in some spots, and I do not want to end up with any pink teeth or anything like that. So, but I will tell you that I've never really been happy with Mattel's paint application on this figure. They were really, really sloppy with it, and I'm going to try and correct some of that for my own personal preference. This is my own personal piece here. Some people, if somebody were to commission this restoration from me, they might want it to look as close to original as possible. But I'm going to clean it up. I'm going to get the teeth up to the gum line where they should be, and try to be careful to not get my white paint in any wet red paint. So you'll see there we've already got some bigger white teeth. Alright, so I'm going to let that dry for a couple seconds, and then we'll come back to it and we'll give it another coat, and then once that gets good and dry, we'll be able to start the flocking process. Okay, so now we've given it a couple seconds to dry here. We'll go ahead and we'll apply our second coat of white to the tips of the teeth. Alright, that should about do it. It's looking pretty nice. Now if you do end up with any of that chalky, like matte, dry consistency that I was talking about before, it's really easy, really something that's easy to take care of in the final stages of the figure. You can just give it a nice light brushing with some like Mod Podge or something like that, and it will take away that dry, chalky look. But if you've got texture issues going on, there's nothing fixing that. So you'll just have to remove the white paint and start over. But we'll let that dry for a few minutes here, and then when we come back, we will actually start the flocking process. Like I said, this figure doesn't really require a whole lot of paint applications, so we'll jump right in. Alright everybody, welcome back. So we're going to go ahead and jump right in and start this flocking process here. To demonstrate how it's going to work out, we'll take our first pot of flocking powder here and get it close, take the lid off. Now with this stuff, you wouldn't think it, but one of these little canisters really goes a long way. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some spray adhesive, and this comes in many different brands, but I think the Krylon is probably the one that I found that works the best. First thing first, if you've got an existing can of spray adhesive, you're going to want to make sure you clean any of the debris and nastiness away from that tip that's going to prevent the spray adhesive from coming out, and give it a good shake. Now for this purpose, I'm actually going to use just like a plastic storage lid from an old cottage cheese container to spray the adhesive on. And then what we'll do is we'll spray the adhesive onto the plastic bowl, and then we'll dip our brush in the adhesive, brush the adhesive on the figure in a nice even thin coat, and then by hand pinch the flocking powder and press it onto the sticky adhesive, and then once it gets good and coated, we'll just brush the extra off onto the paper. So with that in mind, here we go. So this stuff actually dries really fast, so you won't want to spray too much out at one time, and you will want to work as fast as you can. In fact, we'll try to zoom in a little bit here. Okay, so that paw is good and coated. Go ahead and shake some flocking powder out, and here we go. And you'll find that this stuff sticks to the spray adhesive really well. And actually applies quite brilliantly. And we'll just keep going. I'm going to dump out some more flocking powder here. Now, I didn't really think about it, but because of how I bought my flocking powder, it's kind of compressed in this container, so I'm going to try and break it up because it seems to be kind of in balls in some places here. So, okay, so we'll get some more of our adhesive going here. And it probably will take, maybe one or two coats to completely get... I just went and stuck my finger in wet paint. To get it good and coated the way that you want it to, don't be afraid of getting glue over the top of the flocking that you've already done, because you'll be able to just press more over the top of it. You'll see, this stuff coats pretty easily and really fast. Man, I'm just being a complete total slob today. I apologize for the lack of dialogue. Obviously, it takes a little bit of concentration to make sure that you're not making a huge mess with your project. So I'll probably drop some kind of instrumental track for music, just to keep everybody entertained while this is going on, because I know it might get a little dry. So just wanted to kind of, ooh, way too close. Where am I at here? Here we go. Okay. So obviously it still looks a little rough, but you know, it's getting there. It'd get even further if I quit sticking my damn brush and paint. Okay, let's see. Oh, need a new brush. Need a new brush. Set this guy down for a second. I was trying to save mess by using my drop cloth as a palette, and now I've got wet paint sitting off over here on the side that I keep sticking my paintbrush and my adhesive lid in. So, spray down a little more adhesive here. And we'll continue our flocking journey. As you can imagine, this is probably going to be very, very time consuming. Trying to make sure that you get the adhesive laid down smoothly, evenly, and then you're getting the flocking applied before the adhesive has a chance to dry is going to be a big time struggle. You can grab a soft paintbrush that you might have off to the side just to kind of brush any of the extra off. Now you won't want to brush real hard with this, obviously, because you're not wanting to take the the flocking off that you're just putting on. You're just wanting to brush the excess off to the side. Okay. So sure you can probably see it's working its way up the leg here. Keep going up. Now, as I'm doing this, I'm kind of overlapping the adhesive with the area that I've just worked on. That way, if anything seems like it's kind of trailing off or whatever, it'll pick right back up, and the layers should be consistent. Flocking powder out. So, as you can probably see, there are some little buggers here and there that, you know, we'll get taken care of and clean up, but I mean, obviously, you know, the flocking process is definitely happening here. It's nice and fuzzy. Ah, and there I go sticking my brush and paint again. Why don't I just throw my rag here? There. I'm going to start doing a little bit of his face here, since we're coming up around the neck and stuff. And I'll show you I'm going to be very, very precise with where I do my brush. Because I want it to line his mouth as close as possible, but I don't want to ruin up my paint job either. And drop my brush. Yeah, I didn't really think about that move that I just made there, because I think I may still have some wet paint in the jaw here that the flocking may have stuck to, so I'll have to take care of that. I'm going to try and do this in a fashion where I'm not dropping it into the mouth. Dump a little more flocking powder out here. Make sure I get it good and pushed down. Oop. Remember, any areas where it looks like the flocking powder is a little thin, you can always go back and touch it up. think you'll notice that pretty early on that a little bit of that stuff goes a long way. So I'll give you a little close up here. You know, obviously it's coming along. I do have some excess in some places here and there that I'll just need to carefully brush away. No biggie. And whenever you do that, it will also reveal the areas that you'll need to touch up on too. So, you know, you probably see here I've got some bare spots. So again, you just grab your brush, throw a little glue down, and a little flocking powder. A little tap, and a little brush. All your excess will come off. So, I mean, obviously this isn't going to look exactly like a factory flocking would, but it definitely looks better than just having that worn Panthor, you know? So that's the major idea, is just try and make it look better. Adhesive drying out on me. I'll try and speed this process up a little bit here, going down the back. So obviously I'm trying to do one side of the frame or one side of the mold at a time, and then I'll switch it over and I'll do that other side. But most of this is all flat, smooth plastic, so it should be an easy, quick application if I just smear the glue on here. Okay. Flocking powder. I'm just going to dump the canister over his back here. And yeah, that actually went pretty quick, huh? So I'm not even going to worry about those excessive balls right now. I don't think I'll come back to those like as I'm working through. Other side of the belly here. Now, one thing I am noticing is that I don't have a whole lot of like inconsistencies where the old flocking is coming into play. Of course, I got this figure really, really clean. Not as clean as I would have liked to. I would have liked to have had it completely cleaned off. But the only places where I really had any leftover flocking from the old stuff was in like crevices and stuff like that. So for the most part, I did a really good job. So we're getting close to half of the figure being reflocked. Of course, that is without touch-ups and whatnots. You'll notice I'm working pretty quickly. I I'm really trying to trying to beat the clock on this adhesive here, which is a big thing whenever it comes to doing this reflocking. You don't want your adhesive to get dry before you're done, putting your flocking down. Alright everybody, that's where we're going to cap it off for this episode. What did you think? Did you learn anything? Did it freak you out that I was putting all these chemicals on a vintage Masters figure and pulling all the flocking and paint off and reapplying it? If it did, I'd kind of like to maybe hear about it. Jump over the forums, let me know. I kind of consider myself a little bit of a master at this reflocking thing. It's something I've done several times, and then, have done custom flocked figures as well. So if anybody out there has got any figures that they would like reflocked or custom flocked or anything like that, by all means shoot me an email or hit me up, whatever. I'm sure we could work something out. Gotta pay for these art supplies somehow. Anyway, so be sure to stay tuned for the next episode where we will actually finish up this project, get that second half reflocked, get any final touch-ups done, and it will be finished. And if you like this program and any of the other shows that you see here at the Pop Culture Network, be sure to join our forums at jointheforums.com. Check out our store, shoppcn.com. And I am your host and artist intern, Rick13, and we'll see you soon.